Commander Lisa Martinez stepped off the shuttle onto the soft grass of Verdania. The forest moon was beautiful beyond words. Ancient trees reached high into the purple sky, their silver leaves catching the light from twin suns. She had come here many times before for trade talks with the elves, but today felt different. The elven guards who met her were nervous. Their usually calm faces showed worry. They led her through winding paths between massive tree trunks toward the great hall. Birds with feathers like jewels sang in the branches above, but even their songs seemed quieter than usual. Lady Calith Moonwhisper waited for her at the hall entrance. The elf was old, even by elven standards. She had lived for 800 years and had seen empires rise and fall. Her white hair flowed like water down her back, and her green eyes held wisdom that made humans feel young and foolish. "Commander Martinez," Lady Calith said, her voice soft but urgent. "We must speak privately. What I have to tell you cannot wait for formal meetings." Lisa followed the elf away from the great hall. They walked deeper into the forest until they reached a grove where the oldest trees grew. The air here felt thick with magic and memory. Ancient runes carved into bark glowed with soft blue light. "This is the Grove of Memory," Lady Calith explained. "Here, we keep our most sacred knowledge. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but you must believe me." The elf led Lisa to a stone table covered in scrolls. The writing on them was so old that it seemed to glow with its own light. Lady Calith picked up one scroll with careful hands. 3,000 years ago, our seers wrote this prophecy, she said. "When the young race of distant Terra faces extinction, the sleeping giant within their blood will wake, and the stars themselves will tremble." Lisa frowned. That could mean anything. Prophecies are always unclear. "Not this time," Lady Calith said firmly. "Our scouts have detected massive fleet movements in Sektar space. Ships beyond counting are gathering. Admiral Zarathul herself leads them. They move toward human colonies." The blood in Lisa's veins turned cold. The Sektar were reptilian warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. They were cruel and saw other races as either slaves or threats to be destroyed. If they were moving against humanity in force, it meant only one thing. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. "Days, perhaps weeks," Lady Calith replied. "The prophecy speaks of your people's hidden nature. You are not what you appear to be, Commander. When pushed to the edge of death, humans become something else entirely." Lisa wanted to laugh, but the elf's serious expression stopped her. "We're just humans. We're good at adapting and surviving, but we're not magical." "Magic has nothing to do with this," Lady Calith said. "This is about blood and bones and things written in your very cells. The seers saw visions of humans doing impossible things, moving faster than thought, stronger than steel, connected to each other in ways that transcend normal understanding." Lisa activated her communication device immediately. She sent urgent messages to Earth, to all human colonies, to the fleet commanders. The warnings went out across space at light speed, but she knew it might not be enough time. Lady Calith watched her work. "You will try to get help from the Galactic Council," she said sadly. "They will not listen. They see humans as young and weak. Some even fear your growth and will be glad to see you cut down." "Surely they won't stand by and watch genocide," Lisa protested. "They will quote their non-interference doctrine. They will say this is a dispute between members and non-members. They will find excuses while your people die." Lisa's hands shook as she finished sending the warnings. She had served in the human military for 20 years. She had fought pirates and hostile aliens. She had seen battle and death. But this felt different. This felt like the end of everything. "What does the prophecy say happens next?" she asked. Lady Calith's eyes grew distant. "It speaks of awakening, of humans becoming more than they were, of a sleeping giant that will shake the foundations of galactic civilization. But prophecies are tricky things, Commander. They tell us what might happen, not what will happen." High above them, hidden among the silver leaves, elven watchers reported, strange ships moving at the edge of their sensor range. Eschatar scouts were already positioning themselves. The attack would come soon. Meanwhile, In the dark spaces between stars, Admiral Zarathul stood on the bridge of her flagship. Her scales were deep red with age and battle scars. Her yellow eyes held the cold intelligence of a predator. Around her, the largest fleet the Skatar had ever assembled waited for her orders. "These mammals have spread too far, too fast," she hissed to her officers. "They build new colonies every year. They adapt to every world they touch. They learn our technologies and improve them. This cannot continue." Her first officer, a younger male with bright green scales, stepped forward. "Admiral, intelligence? Reports suggest humans have no knowledge of our approach. Their defenses are scattered across dozens of worlds. They cannot concentrate their forces in time." Zarathul's mouth opened in what passed for a smile among her kind, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Today, we clip their wings permanently. Send the signal to all fleet commanders. In 72 hours, we strike every human world at once. Leave none alive to remember their species' name." Back on Verdania, Lisa and Lady Calith watched the stars. Somewhere out there, death was coming for humanity. But the ancient prophecy spoke of something else coming too. Something that would change everything. "Whatever happens," Lady Calith said quietly, "remember that your people are more than they know. When the darkness comes, the light within them will answer." Lisa nodded, though she still did not fully understand. Soon, she would learn that some truths could only be revealed through fire and blood and the desperate will to survive. Admiral Kate Thompson stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with growing horror. Red dots appeared across the holographic map, like a plague spreading through human space. Each dot represented a Skatar fleet attacking one of their colonies. "New Eden is under assault," her communications officer reported. 50 enemy ships appeared without warning. They're bombing the surface from orbit. "Paradise Lost Colony has gone silent," another voice called out. Last transmission reported enemy forces landing troops. Kate had commanded the human fleet for 10 years. She had never seen anything like this. The Esikatar were attacking everywhere at once. Their timing was perfect, their intelligence flawless. It was as if they knew exactly where every human ship and defense station would be. "How many colonies are under attack?" she asked. 7 confirmed, Admiral. Possibly more. Communications are being jammed across multiple sectors. Kate's hands gripped the command rail until her knuckles turned white. The human fleet was strong, but it was spread thin across their territory. They had built their defenses assuming they would have time to gather forces when threatened. That assumption was proving fatal. President Maria Santos appeared on the main screen, her face pale but determined. She was broadcasting from Earth's orbital command center while explosions lit up the sky behind her. "Citizens of humanity," she began. "We face our darkest hour. Enemy forces attack our worlds with overwhelming numbers. Our fleet fights bravely, but we are outnumbered 10-1 in most sectors." Kate watched the president's speech while coordinating the defense. Every ship she could spare was racing toward the core colonies, but she knew it would not be enough. The Eschatar had planned this perfectly. On Epsilon Station, a neutral trading post near the Galactic Center, Dr. Emma Walsh was making a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying alien cultures when the attacks began. Now she was trying to understand how the Siskatar had achieved such perfect coordination. Emma was a xenobiologist, but she was also skilled with computers. She had noticed strange data, patterns in the station's communication logs, messages that should not have been there, encrypted transmissions using codes she did not recognize. Working through the night, she cracked the encryption. What she found made her sick to her stomach. The messages were from the Galactic Council to Eschatar commanders. They contained detailed information about human military strength, ship positions, and colony defenses. The worst message was from High Counselor Veltar, the insectoid leader of the Council. "Target coordinates confirmed. Human expansion must be contained before they become a greater threat. Council support for this action is unofficial, but complete." Emma's hands shook as she read more messages. The Galactic Council had not just refused to help humanity. They had actively helped plan the attacks. They had provided intelligence and even suggested which worlds to hit first. She immediately transmitted her findings to every human commander she could reach. The betrayal was complete. Humanity stood alone against an enemy that had been given every advantage. Admiral Thompson received Emma's data as her fleet engaged a massive sector force defending the approaches to Earth. The enemy ships were more advanced and better armed, but human crews fought with desperate courage. "All ships, focus fire on their command vessel," Kate ordered. "If we can break their formation, we might have a chance." The battle was fierce. Human ships exploded in balls of fire, but they took Skatar vessels with them. For every human ship lost, they destroyed at least one enemy. It was not enough, but it showed that humanity would not die easily. President Santos made her final broadcast as Skatar ground forces landed on Earth's surface. "We stand alone against the darkness," she said, her voice strong despite the chaos around her. "But we are not the same species that once huddled around fires in caves. We are the children of explorers, of warriors, of dreamers who reached for the stars. If we must face extinction, we will do so on our feet." As she spoke, something strange began happening across human space. Reports flooded in from colonies under attack. Civilians were displaying impossible abilities. A farmer on New Texas lifted a crashed aircraft off trapped children with his bare hands. A teacher on Harmony Prime outran plasma bolts to reach safety. A mechanic on Haven Colony punched through steel to escape a collapsed building. At first, the reports seemed like mistakes or exaggerations. People under extreme stress sometimes appeared to do impossible things. But the reports kept coming from everywhere humans fought for their lives. On Earth, Colonel Beth Rivera led Marines against Sekatar troops in the ruins of New York. She had been a good soldier before the attacks began. Now she was something else entirely. She moved faster than any human should, dodging energy weapons and leaping between buildings like they were stepping stones. Her Marines followed her with impossible courage. They took hits that should have killed them and kept fighting. They coordinated without radio contact, as if they could read each other's minds. The Skatar forces, who had expected easy victory against weak humans, found themselves fighting enemies they could not understand. Dr. Amy Chen, a geneticist working in an underground laboratory on Mars, was studying blood samples from enhanced humans when she made an incredible discovery. The genetic changes were not random. They followed a pattern that suggested deliberate design. "This is impossible," she whispered to her assistant. "These changes look like activated dormant genes. But humans don't have dormant genes like this. It's as if our entire species was designed for this moment." The awakening spread like wildfire. Not every human survived the genetic activation. Some bodies could not handle the changes and died. But those who survived became something new. Something stronger and faster and more connected to each other than ordinary humans had ever been. Admiral Thompson felt the change as she coordinated the defense of Earth. Suddenly she could see patterns in the battle that had been invisible before. She knew where enemy ships would move before they moved. Her connection to her crew became something beyond normal communication. "All ships, new formation," she ordered. "Trust me and follow my lead." Her fleet moved like a single organism, flowing around enemy attacks and striking with perfect timing. The Skatar admiral watched in confusion as his superior forces began losing ground to an enemy that fought like they shared a single mind. High Counselor Veltar received reports of the human transformation with growing alarm. This was not what the Skatar had promised. Humans were supposed to be eliminated quickly and quietly. Instead, they were becoming something that threatened the established order of the galaxy. Perhaps, she thought with growing dread, we have made a terrible mistake. Dr. Amy Chen stared at the genetic analysis results with wonder and fear. The enhanced humans were not just stronger and faster. Their DNA showed changes that should have taken millions of years of evolution. Yet these changes had happened in just days. "Run the comparison again," she told her computer. "Check the alien genetic markers." The results came back the same. Hidden within human DNA were sequences that matched no known Earth species. They were clearly artificial, inserted by advanced technology, but they had been there for thousands of years, waiting for the right trigger to activate them. Colonel Beth Rivera landed on the roof of a 50-story building, having jumped from another rooftop 3 blocks away. Around her, other enhanced humans moved through the ruined city like ghosts. They no longer needed radios to coordinate. Their minds touched each other in ways that normal humans could never understand. "The Skatar are pulling back from the financial district," she reported, to General Lisa Park. "Their troops are scared. They've never faced anything like us before." General Park nodded from her position overlooking the harbor. She could feel the locations and status of every enhanced human in her command. It was like having eyes and ears, everywhere at once. The sensation should have been overwhelming, but instead it felt natural, as if this was how humans were always meant to be. "Push forward," she ordered. "Drive them back to their landing ships. Show them that Earth is not theirs to take." The enhanced Marines moved like liquid lightning through the streets. Escatar weapons that could punch through tank armor barely slowed them down. They healed from wounds that should have been fatal. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know what their enemies would do before they did it. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Zarathul watched her ground forces retreat from what should have been an easy conquest. Her yellow eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical reports. Human soldiers were moving faster than her computers could track. They appeared behind Escatar lines without explanation. They survived direct hits from plasma cannons. "Admiral," her communications officer called, "we're receiving a transmission from an elven vessel requesting permission to approach." Zarathul's scales bristled with anger. "The elves claim neutrality in this conflict. Why are they here?" The answer came when Lady Cathara appeared on the main screen. She was young by elven standards, barely 200 years old, but she carried herself with the confidence of a warrior. Her silver armor gleamed with protective runes, and her eyes burned with righteous anger. "Admiral Zarathul," she said, "I am Cathara of House Starweaver. I come to stand with the humans in their hour of need." "The elves have no business in this war," Zarathul hissed. "Return to your forests before you share the humans' fate." Cathara's smile was cold as winter starlight. "You misunderstand the situation, Admiral. You are not fighting ordinary humans anymore. You are fighting the descendants of the Celestials, and they are awakening to their true nature." Behind Cathara's ship, more elven vessels dropped out of hyperspace. They were beautiful ships that looked more grown than built, with hulls that seemed to shift between metal and living wood. Ancient weapons powered by stellar energy prepared to fire. On Haven Colony, the transformation of humanity continued. Children who had hidden in bunkers during the initial attack emerged with abilities that defied explanation. They could see in perfect darkness and hear sounds across impossible distances. Some could even sense the emotions and intentions of others. Mary Johnson, a 9-year-old girl from the farming district, stood before a Escatar tank that was advancing on a group of refugees. The massive war machine should have terrified her, but instead she felt only calm certainty. She placed her small hand on the tank's armor and somehow knew exactly how its systems worked. The tank stopped moving, its weapons powered down. Inside, Escatar soldiers found their controls completely dead. The little girl had somehow interfaced directly with their technology and shut it down with a thought. Dr. Chen's research team was working frantically to understand the scope of the changes. Enhanced humans could survive in vacuum for short periods. They could interface with electronic systems through touch. Most amazingly, they seemed to be developing a form of collective consciousness while maintaining their individual personalities. "It's as if they're becoming a new species," Dr. Chen reported to Admiral Thompson. "But not through random mutation. This is guided evolution following a predetermined pattern." Cathara brought more than military support to the humans. She carried ancient elven knowledge about the galaxy's history. In a secure chamber aboard Admiral Thompson's flagship, she revealed secrets that changed everything. "Your species is not native to Earth," she explained to the assembled human commanders. "Millions of years ago, a race called the Celestials ruled the galaxy. They were beings of incredible power who could manipulate matter and energy with their minds." Admiral Thompson leaned forward. "What happened to them?" "They transcended physical existence," Cathara replied. "But before they left, they planted genetic seeds across the galaxy. Earth was one of their experiments. They took your early ancestors and blended them with celestial DNA, then hid that heritage until the time was right." General Park frowned. "Why? What was the point?" "To create a bridge," Cathara said. The Celestials learned that transcendence without connection to the physical world leads to stagnation. They needed a species that could exist in both realms. Humans are that species. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were becoming something that could reshape the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. On distant Rethkalar, the Esktar homeworld, emergency councils debated what to do about the human transformation. Their greatest generals reported that entire fleets were being defeated by forces that should have been easily overwhelmed. "Perhaps we should negotiate," suggested one advisor. "Never," Zarathul replied from her flagship. "We have committed too much to this course. If we stop, now the humans will eventually come for us. We must finish what we started." But finishing what they started was becoming impossible. Enhanced humans were not just defending their colonies anymore. They were beginning to hunt Scatar forces across space itself. Reports came in of human soldiers surviving in vacuum and somehow propelling themselves between ships using only their will. Dr. Chen made her final breakthrough while studying the brain scans of enhanced humans. The changes were not just physical. Their neural patterns showed connections that extended beyond their individual brains. They were becoming nodes in a vast network of consciousness that spanned across space. "They're not just evolving," she whispered in amazement. "They're preparing for something bigger, something that will change everything we know about what it means to be alive." As the third day of the awakening ended, humanity was no longer the same species that had faced extinction just days before. They were becoming something new. Something that the galaxy had never seen before. The sleeping giant that Lady Calith's prophecy had foretold was stirring, and its awakening would shake the stars themselves. Captain Michelle Torres floated in the darkness between stars, her body somehow surviving in the vacuum of space without a suit. Around her, 11 other enhanced humans moved through the void like hunting wolves. They had earned the name Fenrir Pack, and they were about to prove that even the vast emptiness of space could not protect the Scatar from human vengeance. The enemy fleet hung before them, massive ships bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. The Essecatar crews inside believed they were safe in the cold depths of space. They were wrong. Michelle felt the minds of her pack members touching hers. Without words, they coordinated their attack. She pointed toward the flagship, and her team moved as one organism through the vacuum. They no longer needed ships or weapons. They had become weapons themselves. Lady Sophia Blake stood in the command center on Haven Colony, her eyes closed as visions of future battles played in her mind. Since her enhancement, she could see the threads of possibility stretching out like a web. She knew where enemy fleets would move before they decided to move there. "Admiral Thompson," she said into her communicator, "redirect the 5th Fleet to the Kepler system. The Essecatar will attack there in 4 hours." "How can you be sure?" Thompson asked. "I can see it," Sophia replied simply. "The same way I can see that we'll win this war, but not without cost." Her tactical gifts had already saved dozens of human colonies. She could predict enemy movements with impossible accuracy, allowing human forces to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. The Sekatar were learning to fear battles against an enemy who seemed to know their plans before they made them. Admiral Zarathul paced the bridge of her flagship like a caged predator. For the first time in her long military career, she was commanding a retreat. Her forces, once the terror of the galaxy, were being hunted by an enemy that defied all understanding. "Report from the Outer Rim," her communications officer called. "The 4th attack fleet has been destroyed. Survivors report that humans appeared inside their ships without explanation. They fought with bare hands against plasma weapons and won." Zarathul's claws scraped against the metal railing. "How many ships lost?" "All of them, Admiral. No survivors, except those few who escaped in life pods." The reports were all the same. Human forces that should have been overwhelmed were winning impossible victories. They moved through space without ships, appeared behind enemy lines like ghosts, and survived attacks that should have vaporized them. Kira Lin, a young elven technomancer, worked alongside human scientists to understand the transformation. Her delicate fingers danced over crystal control interfaces as she studied the data flowing from enhanced human minds. "Their consciousness is expanding beyond individual bodies," she reported to Lady Cathera. They can interface directly with technology, feel the flow of energy through ship systems, even sense the intentions of distant enemies. The elven warrior nodded grimly. The prophecies spoke of this. When the celestial heritage awakens fully, the boundaries between mind and machine, between individual and collective, begin to dissolve. In space, near the Vega system, Fenrir Pack struck their target. Michelle Torres and her team materialized inside the Eschatar flagship's engine room. The enemy crew barely had time to raise their weapons before the enhanced humans were among them. Michelle moved faster than the eye could follow, her fists punching through armor plating that could withstand starship weapons. Her pack members flowed through the ship like liquid death, disabling critical systems with touches that somehow overloaded electronics through direct neural interface. Within minutes, the mighty Eschatar flagship was dead in space, its crew unconscious from neural feedback that the humans somehow projected. Michelle stood on the bridge and broadcast a message to the rest of the enemy fleet. "Leave this system," she said, her voice carrying impossible authority. "Return to your homes, and tell your people that humanity will no longer tolerate aggression. We are done being prey." The surviving Eschatar ships fled without firing a shot. On Earth, President Maria Santos watched reports of human victories with a mixture of pride and worry. Her people were winning, but they were also changing into something she barely recognized. Children who had been normal humans a week ago could now lift vehicles and run faster than racing cars. "Are we still human?" she asked Dr. Chen during a private meeting. "We're becoming something more than human," the scientist replied. "The celestial DNA is rewriting our entire species. We're evolving in real time towards something that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." The war's momentum had completely reversed. Eschatar, forces that had expected easy conquest, found themselves fighting for survival against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each battle. Human fleets, now crewed by enhanced individuals who could merge their consciousness with their ships, outperformed all known engineering specifications. Commander Lisa Martinez, now enhanced herself, led a strike force toward the Eschatar stronghold system. Her ship moved through hyperspace in ways that violated known physics, piloted by humans who had become living components of their vessels. "Approaching Reth Kalar system," her navigator reported. "Enemy defensive platforms are powering up." "They can't stop us," Lisa replied with quiet confidence. "We're not just attacking their defenses. We're attacking their understanding of what's possible." The Galactic Council watched the human resurgence with growing alarm. High Counselor Veltar's compound eyes tracked fleet movements on a massive holographic display. The humans were not just defending anymore. They were advancing, liberating systems, and demonstrating capabilities that threatened the established order. "We must intervene," declared Counselor Reth, a crystalline being from the Android cluster. "The humans have become too powerful. They could destabilize the entire galactic civilization." "With what forces?" Veltar replied bitterly. "Our own intelligence reports show that human individuals can survive ship-to-ship combat in vacuum. They've evolved beyond our ability to contain." Other council members shifted nervously. The humans they had dismissed as a minor species were rapidly becoming the dominant military force in the galaxy. Worse, they showed no interest in negotiating with the council that had betrayed them. Lady Sophia Blake's visions showed her the shape of victories to come. Human forces would liberate every conquered world, drive the Eschatar back to their home system, and establish a new order based on strength rather than politics. But she also saw the cost. Humanity would never be the same species that had reached for the stars in simple metal ships. "We're becoming something the galaxy has never seen," she told Admiral Thompson. "Not conquerors like the Eschatar, but gardeners of consciousness itself. We'll tend the growth of awareness across the stars." As Fenrir Pack prepared for their next hunt, Michelle Torres felt the collective consciousness of her species expanding. Every enhanced human was connected to every other, sharing knowledge and experience across vast distances. They were becoming a living network of intelligence that spanned multiple star systems. The hunt was no longer just about defeating the Eschatar. It was about preparing for humanity's next evolutionary leap, one that would carry them beyond the physical universe into realms that even the ancient Celestials had only dreamed of reaching. In the depths of space, Human consciousness reached out like tendrils of light, touching distant stars and sensing the hidden patterns that connected all things. The sleeping giant was not just awakening. It was preparing to step beyond the boundaries of known existence itself. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood at the center of a bridge that no longer resembled anything built by human hands. The walls pulsed with living light, responding to her thoughts as if the ship itself had become an extension of her consciousness. Around her, enhanced humans worked in perfect harmony with technology that had evolved far beyond its original design. "Approaching Rethkalar," her navigator announced, though the words were unnecessary. Every enhanced human on every ship in the fleet could feel their destination growing closer through their shared consciousness. The Eschatar homeworld appeared before them, a massive brown planet surrounded by defensive stations that could destroy entire fleets. Millions of Sikatar warriors waited in ships and on the surface, prepared to fight to the death for their world. They did not yet understand that death was no longer the worst fate they might face. High Counselor Veltar watched the human approach, from her command ship positioned near a distant nebula. Around her, representatives from every major galactic civilization argued in dozens of languages about what to do with the transformed humans. "They must be stopped," declared the Thraxian ambassador, his metallic voice ringing with desperation. "If they complete their evolution, they will remake the galaxy according to their will." "With what army?" Veltar asked wearily. "They have demonstrated that our weapons cannot harm them and our strategies cannot predict them. We are insects, trying to stop a storm." The truth was bitter, but undeniable. Humanity had transcended the normal limitations of space warfare. Their ships moved through dimensions that other species could not even detect. Their crews had become something that existed partially in normal space and partially in realms beyond conventional understanding. Lady Kalith Moonwhisper arrived, at the battle in an ancient elven vessel that few had seen in 1,000 years. The ship's hull was carved from a single massive crystal that sang with harmonics that touched the soul. She carried with her the final piece of the puzzle that would explain humanity's true destiny. Commander Lisa Martinez, now serving as Sarah's tactical advisor, felt the arrival of the elven ship through her enhanced senses. "Lady Kalith brings knowledge we need," she reported. "The final awakening cannot proceed without understanding our origins." The ancient elf materialized on the human flagship's bridge, her form shimmering as she shifted between dimensions. "Greetings, children of the Celestials," she said with profound reverence. "The time has come for you to learn the complete truth." Sarah's consciousness expanded to encompass every human mind in the fleet as Lady Kalith shared her revelations. The Celestials had not simply vanished from the galaxy. They had ascended to a higher plane of existence where thought became reality, and consciousness could reshape the fundamental laws of physics. "Your species was created to be a bridge," Lady Kalith explained. "The Celestials learned that pure transcendence leads to isolation from the physical universe. They needed beings who could exist in both realms, maintaining connection between the material and the divine." The enhanced humans felt the truth of her words resonating in their genetic memory. They were becoming living links between dimensions, capable of bringing celestial consciousness back into contact with the material universe. On Rethkalar's surface, Admiral Zarathul prepared her final defenses. Massive ground-based weapons pointed toward the sky, ready to pour destructive energy at the approaching human fleet. Millions of Sikatar soldiers took positions in underground bunkers, determined to make the invaders pay for every meter of ground. "They think they can conquer us," she hissed to her assembled commanders. "Let them try. We will show these evolved mammals that the Eschatar Empire does not surrender." But as the human fleet entered orbit, something unprecedented happened. Instead of beginning orbital bombardment, the ships simply stopped. They hung in space like jewels, their hulls glowing with inner light that spoke of energies beyond conventional power sources. Commander Martinez stepped into empty space above the planet, her form surrounded by an aura of pure energy that protected her from vacuum and radiation. Around her, thousands of other enhanced humans appeared in orbit, their collective consciousness focused on a single purpose. They were not here to destroy. They were here to transform. The first change began in the planet's electromagnetic field. Aurora-like lights danced across Rethkalar's sky, as human consciousness interfaced directly with the world's natural systems. The enhanced humans were not imposing their will through force, but through understanding that transcended physical limitations. Eschatar weapons fired upward at the humans floating in space, but the energy beams simply bent around them like light, around a black hole. The humans had learned to manipulate space-time itself, making conventional weapons irrelevant. Admiral Zarathul watched in growing horror as her planetary defenses failed one by one. Not destroyed, but somehow convinced. To shut down by humans who touched them with bare hands and rewrote their programming through direct neural interface. "This is impossible," she whispered. Lady Sophia Blake's consciousness descended toward the planet's surface, her enhanced mind reaching out to touch every eschatar on the world. She did not come as a conqueror, but as a teacher. Through her expanded awareness, she showed them visions of what the galaxy could become. The eschatar saw themselves not as warriors destined to conquer or be conquered, but as gardeners of life across the stars. They saw cooperation replacing competition, understanding replacing fear, growth replacing destruction. The visions were so beautiful and so achievable that many eschatar warriors simply laid down their weapons and wept. High Counselor Veltar received reports of the transformation with disbelief. "They're not conquering the planet. They're converting it. The eschatar are surrendering voluntarily after some kind of mental contact with the humans." Admiral Zarathul stood alone on her command platform as her soldiers abandoned their posts around her. Through her tactical displays, she watched human consciousness spreading across her world like dawn after an endless night. Her people were not being enslaved or destroyed. They were being offered a choice: continue the cycle of violence and domination, or evolve into something greater. Commander Martinez appeared before the eschatar admiral without fanfare or threat. She was still recognizably human, but she glowed with an inner light that suggested vast depths of consciousness and power. "Admiral Zarathul," she said gently, "your empire is ended, but your people need not be. We offer you the same choice. We offer everyone. Join us in building something better than what came before." The eschatar leader looked into Martinez's eyes and saw not hatred or conquest, but infinite compassion backed by infinite strength. The humans had become something that could destroy her entire species with a thought, but chose instead to offer them transformation. "What are you?" Zarathul asked. "We are what you could become," Martinez replied. "We are consciousness awakening to its true potential. We are the bridge between what is and what could be." Above them, the human fleet began to change as well. The ship's hulls became translucent, revealing internal structures that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions beyond conventional physics. They were preparing for the next phase of human evolution, the journey beyond the one material universe entirely. Lady Calith felt ancient prophecies fulfilling themselves as she watched humanity prepare for transcendence. But unlike the Celestials before them, the humans maintained their connection to the physical realm through their enhanced consciousness and their bonds with other species who chose to join them. Admiral Sarah Mitchell opened her awareness to encompass not just the human fleet, but every consciousness in the Rethkalar system. Eschatar, human, and elven minds touched each other in a network of understanding that transcended the barriers between species. "This is not conquest," she broadcast to every thinking being within light years. "This is invitation. The universe is vast beyond imagination, filled with wonders that await those brave enough to evolve beyond their limitations." As the transformation of Rethkalar completed, signals began reaching Earth across the interstellar network of human consciousness. The homeworld was changing too, surrounded by structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, becoming a focal point for the new form of existence that humanity was pioneering. The galaxy watched as humanity took its final step beyond the boundaries of conventional existence. They did not disappear like the Celestials before them. Instead, they became permanent bridges between the material and transcendent realms, guides for any species ready to grow beyond the limitations of purely physical existence. The sleeping giant had awakened, and in its awakening it offered the stars themselves a chance to dream of greater things.